Welcome to Backyard Bows. Hey, welcome to Backyard Bows. I'm Brandon. We have our first prime up on deck today. So I purchased this bow, maybe 6-7 weeks ago. It took a minute to get in, so I've been really looking forward to this bow for two reasons. One, I haven't shot a prime in a while, maybe since I owned a prime ion. I haven't owned one in a while. I got to shoot the Nexus in a bow shop last year, but I don't have a ton of experience with them just in general. Also, anytime a bow company makes, like we've talked about, significant changes comparatively to some of those, little minor changes that every company makes every year, I kind of get a little bit more excited. And boy, did they. I think there's no bigger change than switching up the engine. So something we've seen with prime for as long as I can remember is those parallel cams. And that's kind of the first thing that comes to mind when I think of a prime bow, is that parallel cam system. It's just so unique. There's something intriguing about it. And the first time you see one, you're kind of like, what's that? So, and they went with that parallel cam system for a reason, trying to take away cam lean, really center everything on the axle in full draw. And so what they did is they tried to stick to, some of those changes that they were trying to accomplish. They made some changes with this inline cam, which is a tri-track binary system, a little bit simpler cam system. But they made some little changes, which we'll discuss in a second, to try to accomplish those same things that parallel cam system was doing. So first, if you look at all the bows online, even the inlines, the Nexuses, you got 1, 3, 5 for the inlines, you got 2, 4, and 6 for the Nexuses. It looks like they're all the same riser. The Nexuses have the parallel cam system, the inlines have the single inline cam system that we see on this one. So you got 6 different bows, all of them, they cover all the draw, all the axle to axle lengths is 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. So they kind of, cover everything for every hunter. I went with the inline. Obviously I was really intrigued, by this big change that they make. The Nexus also, I would love to get one in here at the house so we could actually shoot it a whole bunch and not just the little that I did at the bow shop, because man, those parallel cam systems really intrigue me as well. Now, the downside of those, like we all know, you're adding weight and you're adding a very complex system. And anytime you add a system with so much going on, I feel common sense says there's room for errors. You got 7 different cables and strings that could adjust over time. You got 4 different cams, that you're trying to tune and get the timing right instead of just 2. So there's a lot going on there. I understand the concept behind it, but if this shoots well, I would much rather go with this, because I think prime actually, quality-wise, has some great bows. So this is the prime 1, inline 1, 31 axle to axle, 4.2 pounds, 7-inch brace height. Man, this thing, 332 on the IBO. Again, first hands-on, quality is amazing. The finish, I got the morel color. They had a lot of cool colors and a lot of cool color schemes online to choose from. I love the morel, I love solid colors, but this thing, just again, in hand, like the Elite last week, once you kind of get it, you realize the quality of these is just incredible. So let's start from the very basics, okay? A couple things that I noticed. One, you got these dampeners down here that kind of look real similar to the Hoyt ones. You got 2 on either side of this lower limb pocket, which I love the placement of those. The limb pockets, quality-wise, are great. They're very wide, and if you look at it dead on, it kind of looks like it's off-center, and the lady in the bow shop said that was meant to be, and that kind of compensates for some of the initial, slanting of that mod on those cables, and it kind of counters it when you're in full draw. So that's supposed to be like that if you're looking at it dead on and you feel like it's off. Really nice wide limb pockets, wide platform. I love these dampeners in between the limbs. All of the dampening systems, including the string stop to the little one here on the cable guard, I love this rubber material. I feel like it's just, you can tell it's made for absorption. Another really cool thing is this grip. There's two pieces that go on front and back, they get bolted on, and then they actually have a liner under the grip that is between the rubber grip and the aluminum riser, and it's supposed to regulate kind of temperature and keep that cold riser off of the grip and kind of prevent temperature from transferring over to your hand. So I love that. I love the shape of this. Just with it in my hand just for a little bit, it's kind of one of those medium thickness grips that I love. Not too thin like the SR350, and then not too thick like the you know, the grip that you can attach onto the PSEs. It's kind of right there in the middle, but man, I loved it, just kind of dialing this thing in. Something else I want to mention, because we mentioned the Winner's Choice strings by Elite last week. Something else I think is really cool that Prime does, if you own the bow for a year and a half, they have a lifetime warranty on strings and cables, so you can get them replaced. So I thought that was a really cool feature I read about as well. You know, and Prime in general, if you don't know, 2010 is when they started, fairly new company. I love companies that are innovative and that kind of jump right into the scene. You know, it's a bold thing to do to come up with that parallel cam system. I love that they went back to the drawing board, tried to re-engineer the same functions of the, you know, parallel cam system into, you know, this one, which is just the single cam top and bottom, which we'll go over that in a second. I love the cable guard, reminds me of the Bowtex, except this one you can adjust forward and back. It does have a little dampener on here, and then when you put it in a bro press and take the pressure off this, it kind of folds back, and you can kind of tell it takes some of that torque out of those cables. Anytime you have two spots where you can mount a rest, the better. I'm pretty rough with my equipment. The rests are so important to kind of keep right where you initially dial them in and tune the bow. And having two places that you can bolt it down, I think is a must at this point. So the actual riser has a cool little characteristics to it. There's a little bend in the bottom, which they kind of counter at the top. I love the shape of it. I love the way this thing looks. So let's jump to the cams, inline cam system. And at first, what was noticeable to me at first the most was when you look at the cam this way, it actually looks like it has some initial lean to it. And that's on purpose, because what happens is when you rotate this thing and get it into full draw, the mods actually have a little bit of a lean on them as well, and it kind of, after you rotate all the way around, it kind of tucks those cables up under the cam, and so that the string and the cables are all lined up perfectly in full draw, hence the inline system. So again, you're taking the cam lean out, it's all centered right down the middle, even distribution of weight from the cables. I love when companies really go back to the drawing board, really, you know, let their engineers try and come up with the best system, because man, look how far we come. And like, you know, every other year, let's say, you know, we kind of keep pushing that ceiling, and I just love it. It's so intriguing to me every time a company comes out with stuff like this. So they went back to a draw stop from a string stop, which is the first time in some years that Prime's done that. So I think it'll have a really nice solid back wall, especially with everything lining up perfectly. I think the hold's gonna be awesome on this thing. Let's go ahead, let's sling a couple here inside, then we'll go outside. Man, I'm off work, excited to kind of spend the weekend with this thing in hand, getting to shoot a whole bunch. It's been a little bit hot, but man, it's supposed to be no rain, clear skies, so we'll get after it and put a whole bunch of arrows through this. So again, grip, awesome, love that grip. Right behind Hoyt, I think it's probably one of my favorites. Hoyt Elite and this Prime grip, man, they're all just really unique in their own way, but they feel so good. And again, the grips always stand out to me for some reason a lot. So it has a little bit different balance, because really the center of the grip is perfectly in the middle of the riser, so you actually have less on top. Just by picking it up, you can tell that there's less to the top of the bow and more to the bottom, which it feels funny in your hand right now, but usually when that's the case in full draw, it sets up nice. So let's go ahead and we'll just sling a couple right here inside and give you this kind of initial assessment. So that's a tough pullback. I'm gonna say, you know, you can tell when you're trying to rotate the module system, these cables press really hard up against it. Okay, so you kind of have to pop that cable out to rotate that mod. But you know, with such a lean on those cables from the beginning to get them tucked all the way up underneath, you know, I think that's what you're feeling. So it's a very firm, you know, pullback. It's smooth. So I think some people associate smooth with effortless, and I don't. It's a smooth transition all the way back, but man, it is tough to get back. So 70 pounds feels like 75. But I mean, it's really smooth to come back. And right now, you know, looking up at the top, you know, you can really tell that those cables shift over, everything balances out. It balances nice. So once you get back, that little bit of awkward feeling of this bottom being real heavy and wanting to swing back goes away in full draw, you know, when it matters. So I think the only other thing that really stands out is these limb pockets are real wide. There's a lot of space between the limbs, and then you have these spacers in between on either side of the cam, and they actually give you extra spacers in the bag when you buy the bow that are different thicknesses, and that's kind of how you tune the bow. You can pop these ones out and pop different thicknesses in to kind of tune it right and left. So a little bit different system. And again, I haven't done it. I don't know how easily they pop out. I kind of read about it. You kind of loosen up these bolts on the side, creates a little bit of room, and then there's a tool you can pop these ones out and pop the new ones in. But I might, you know, mess around with that later and kind of see how easy that is. But for the most part, the module system, you know, it just rotates. You go from 25 to 30 and a half. There's a little bitty, you know, metal indicator right there on top of the cam that you put in a groove, and then that lines up with a number, which you can go off of a graph that they have online and kind of find that draw length. And then the only other thing that I forgot to mention is the draw weights on this are huge. You go from 30, 40, 50, 60, 65, 70, 80. So you got a nice range of peak draw weights. Again, each company's really stepping up their game. I love that Prime put out a single cam. The dual cams I kind of strayed away from. You know, the parallel cams. I did. Just as a hunter, somebody who likes to work on stuff myself, it seems like they were very complicated. And then again, even if you know, even the person that's the bow shop that sells these, they even said, man, we don't even have a ton of experience working on the parallel cam system. We sell some, but even finding somebody that's really good at working on those parallel cams, you got 7, like I said earlier, 7 different cables and strings. There's a lot going on, just a whole lot. So unless you're willing to really research it and work on it yourself, I think it'd be even hard to find somebody that specializes in that. So, or at least where I'm at here in Missouri. So let's put a couple more through. And I love the draw. I love a firm draw. So it's nice and stiff all the way through. You know, it's kind of a, right from the beginning to the end, you're having to pull back good, but once you get into your back wall, it's really, really solid. I love that the draw stop on there, or the limb stop, it's real solid. And then right when you get to the back, that's when it really kind of balances out really nice. But it is a smooth draw. It's just kind of tough to get back, and I think it's because of the lean of those module systems and how they kind of rotate around, bringing those cams or cables over. But once you're here, that's real solid. I like that a lot. Nice compact bow. I always go with the shorter one, so 31. I'd love to see how that, you know, the 35 feels. I bet you that draw really smooths out on that longer axle to axle. But this one, for being a nice compact bow, this is solid. I like this a lot. I like what Prime has done here. I think the grip and these new cams, man, this is a great bow. Really nice. Let's do one more before we step outside. So I do think it's something that I might not be able to shoot as much as I've shot other bows. It is tough to get back. It's kind of wearing on my shoulder, just pulling so many back. It's tough. I don't know if you can tell from the video, but it's definitely a little stiff getting back. But we'll shoot as much as we can. If we gotta take some breaks, we gotta take some breaks, but nice bow. All right, so on to the best part. Look at this. I just picked up a arrow. Look what it had on it. A little tree frog. I almost shot that. Man, that was really cool. All right, on to the fun part of the day. It's pretty out, it's a little hot. We'll shoot as much as we can before we sit down and give it that grade, but we'll start here. We'll hit these targets from up here on this elevated deck stand. We got a turkey, boar, and the farthest is the buck at 30. Coyote actually across the way is at 35, and then we'll go across and we'll shoot some of the longer range ones. But man, this wisteria needs a trimming. This stuff is getting everywhere. But so I do like the draw, but man, is it tough to get back. Like it's a good solid effort you got to put in to get this thing to full draw. I mean, it's really smooth. It transitions really nicely from the beginning to the end, but it's tough. But the best part, which I've said this before, it's probably the most important to me, is the hold. How does the bow hold when it's fully set up? And this is solid. It's nice and solid. Once you kind of get it all the way back, the pins dial down quickly, and it sets up really nice. And a lot of that weight that you feel in that draw, you know, really goes away at the end. And man, it holds really, really nice. Let's put one on the buck. The only thing, it's a little windy today. It's a little windy, but in the field, you know, I hunt windy days. I've seen some of the best deer I've ever taken on a windy day. Some of the best deer I've not been able to take on a windy day. So the wind shouldn't stop you from practicing or determining how a bow feels and holds for you. All right, so we'll jump over to the coyote. This is about a 35-yard shot, and then we'll jump over to the gazebo and hit some of those 40, 50-yard shots. Let's put one more on that coyote. Man, the vibration, that's probably the thing to me that is the most unfamiliar. It's not the vibration that I'm used to feeling. It's a little wither in your hand. It's kind of it's a little kick that you might feel a little bit, but it's not the same kind. It's kind of hard to describe, and something that you just might have to get out there and test yourselves. But I love the way it holds. I love the draw, even though, man, I can already feel myself. I wouldn't be able to shoot this thing all day. Something else I like is the grip. I don't remember the grip on my Prime Ion that I had, but clearly this is kind of a whole new design grip. I love the way it feels. And I love the thickness. So I'm kind of a medium grip thick kind of guy. You know, I don't like anything obviously too fat, like some of those rubber grips that you can attach onto the primes. But I also don't like too thin like the SR350. So this is kind of that perfect medium sized grip. And since we're on the topic of prime, now I really want to get my hand on that Nexus with those parallel cams. Something about it, it's intriguing. When you read about it and it kind of gets explained to you, it makes sense on what they do, but I do understand that it adds unnecessary weight to bows. And then obviously it adds a lot of maneuverable moving parts, you know, where things can get out of, you know, kind of altered. So I do love simple, but man, I think I'm gonna have to try to get my hand on a Nexus and just kind of test one of those out, because the more I shoot this inline, the more I like this bow. But I think the hold is not It's probably one of my favorite, just across the board. The hold feels so good on this. And you still have to put effort into it. It's not like it's a 90% let off where it's just, it's comfortable, but it kind of keeps you tense enough, but you can tell it's equally as solid. So it's like a give and, you know, push and pull, but really comfortable. Man, I like that. I like that more and more. So let's go to the black bear, which is at 40. Then we'll put a couple up on that elk at 50. And then we'll run this thing through the chronograph, which I'm excited about. But I love the way these arrows are coming off of this. The shot cycle on this thing is really clean. It just feels quick. But man, this is a nice little compact hunting bow. Man, and across the board, we've seen so many cool bows this year, and this is just kind of the icing on the cake. You know, just one more great bow from a cool company, a new company that's trying to be innovative and really try to, again, make that perfect setup for us, the hunters. So it's so cool. I got all these companies competing. And they got their top minds, you know, on the production process and trying to design the best bows for us. I love it. You know, it's like a kid in a candy shop. You just get so many different options, and everything is such high quality. I mean, the quality on this bow is exceptional. Same with last week's Encore from Elite. I mean, the quality is just amazing on these bows. Let's do the elk. So, and as I've mentioned, if you want to truly, you know, figure out if a bow is performing for you, you got to shoot out to 50. You got to get out to 50 yards. That's where you're going to see, you know, whether or not you shoot well with a bow. Any bow, 20 yards, I mean, it's just really hard to tell in a shooting range, you know, in an indoor shooting range. It's really hard to tell the performance of a bow. You can kind of get those initial feelings, but to really give a bow a performance type grade, you got to get out to 50, and I think that's where you kind of see. So we'll spend most of the time over here like we do under the gazebo, shooting at the 50, some at the black bear, but this is where I'll kind of shoot from for most of the day. So for the first shot on the elk. Again, you know, now that we've shot quite a bit, and again, something that stands out at the beginning, usually after shooting a long time, it gets intensified or kind of fades away. The draw now, after I've been shooting a little bit, it's tougher and tougher to get this thing back. And I don't have a bad shoulder. I got a good shoulder, you know, and I feel like I'm a fairly strong guy, but this is starting to feel more like 80 now that we've been shooting it a little bit. So again, tough to get back. Once you're back, it holds real nice. And one of my favorite holds yet. I mean, it's just nice and solid in that back wall. And like I mentioned, the little bit of discomforted of the balancing of kind of, you know, such little to the top of the bow, that all goes away once you're in full draw. This will be one of the bows that I'll probably shoot a little bit, put down, shoot a little bit, put down. But man, this is cool. I like I said, I haven't shot a prime in a while. The last one I shot, I remember liking it, shot with it for a season, ended up selling it, kind of to buy something else, and it was that parallel system. So this is the first prime I've shot with just your kind of more common, you know, just single cam, and man, this thing is firing nice. Let's put one more in. And I love this. This is a nice bow. And I love to kind of see how the balancing, the draw, everything kind of changes with those longer axle to axles if I could ever get my hands on some of those. But for the 31, man, that's a nice compact bow. All right, so this gets 332 IBO. We got 29.5, 70 pounds, 85% peak let off on this. 500 grain arrow. Let's put a couple through, we'll see what it gets. 290. So again, we'll shoot a couple more, but it's always, like I said, just in the single shot assessment, you can tell that this thing was pumping an arrow. So again, the IBO ratings, when you get to a realistic hunting arrow, it all varies. You got to put your hunting arrow that you're going to hunt with through your bow, because man, I think sometimes you'll be surprised on what they get. So let's see. We'll see if it's nice and consistent. That's 292. Honestly, I'm impressed right now. That blows me away. I don't understand how. I mean, that's impressive. So this is the, again, all the variables are the same. This is only the second bow to get over 290. I mean, that's 290. I mean, that's, I was not expecting that. So they're, they got an honest IBO of 332. You add a realistic 500 grain arrow. And I've said it before, some bows are just stronger. So no matter that I'm bumping up this arrow weight, it's still pumping at high speeds. So that's another duplicate, so 290, that's awesome. That's honestly something that I was not expecting. I was thinking 280, so that it got an entire 10 feet per second faster than what I was expecting and anticipating. That's pretty cool. So I got a grade here for this bow, and we put significant thought into each of these grades. I actually sit down, one evening, and I kind of think of everything I liked about it. If there was anything that I might have not liked or it wasn't my preference, I kind of factor that in, and I try to give you the most accurate grade we can. So first, I love when a company is innovative. I love that, because at certain points in time, we think we know it all, and then sure enough, something comes out that we're like, wow, this is incredible, and just look how far we've come. So the bows nowadays kind of speak for themselves, but I do think that at times we reach a point where we are maybe thinking a little too far outside the box, and straying away from just some things that work. So I think the parallel cam system, my personal opinion is that it was just extra all around. Extra weight, it had a little bit of extra vibration to it, all to perfectly balance out the cam and take away cam lean. I think that the systems that are in place nowadays are just such high performance that even though it still intrigues me and I would love to still get my hands on one, man, it just seems like so much extra going on for not a lot of reward. Okay, so I love that Prime decided, hey, we're gonna take a step back. We're gonna go back to the single cam. We're gonna still try to incorporate some of those things that the parallel cam system had in mind, but we're gonna do it with a simpler system. I love that. That's one of my reasons why I was so excited to get my hands on this bow, was because I thought that was a big change for them to kind of say, hey, we loved the idea of this. It's a little bit too much. We realize that it's a little bit excessive. We're gonna try our hardest. Our engineers are gonna work their hardest to get you the same results with a simpler system. I love that. Okay, so when I drew it back, as I said in the single shot assessment, you can always tell when fully loaded just by the way it holds and by the draw cycle, if a bow is gonna sling an arrow at high speeds. And man, I got that from the first draw. And then I thought, man, maybe it's a little bit stiff being brand new, and sure enough, every single time I drew it back, you could just tell that this thing was pumping an arrow. I did not think it was gonna get 293 with my 500 grain arrow. Absolutely impressed. It only has a 332 IBO rating. That shocked me. That's awesome. We're gonna give it those 2 extra points. So speed, it gets a 12. 12 out of 10, which is awesome. It's a great start for this bow. Quality, very impressed as well. Very similar to some of the Elite bows with the finish, just the high quality of everything from the limb pockets to the cable guard. I love the entire bow, the way it's set up. I think it's, it's up there. So we gave it the 9 out of 10 for the quality. Just really nice and solid all around. I love the bolts in the limbs that connect to the limb pockets. And again, the finish on this thing is just super clean. You can tell it's a really nice, strong finish. Appeal, again, personal preference. I love this bow. I love the way they look. I love the little characteristics to the riser. Also very simple, but in a way very dynamic. So I love the way these look. 9 out of 10 as well. Then the technical. Besides the new mods that are forcing the cables over to align with the strings, that new system, this inline cam system, which I'm gonna tell you right now, I think it just really played into the draw cycle. To me, it shot just like any other bow. You still have to take these spacers out, put new ones in. If you don't have a bow press, or if you don't have the right tool, you have to take the axles out. It just, it's the technology here. You might be able to say there's a little bit of technology that went into that liner of the grip to prevent temperature. It's very basic. And I'm sure they'd be upset with me saying that, because they probably put a lot of good effort into these new cams and mods and this inline system. But to me, it's almost the same as every other bow. And I actually like the tri-track binary system on the HBX cams from Hoyt, where you get one of the cables connecting on either side of the cam, which to me, it seems like that would balance out more than this. But, so I gave it an 8 out of 10 on the technology. I think if we get a Nexus in here, as much as I wouldn't like to shoot maybe the parallel cam systems, that seems like a really cool technology with a lot that goes into it. But even then, for the performance aspect, I'd probably still give it an 8 out of 10. So 8 out of 10 for technology. And then performance, I'm also gonna give it an 8 out of 10. I love the way it shot. My favorite part was the hold, which we've talked about how is, to me, the most important. It's nice and rock solid. It keeps you tense, but it holds really nice. These arrows were coming off of here, man, like little missiles. This thing just fired real well. The draw cycle was extremely stiff, smooth transitioning from front to back, but it was tough to pull back, and I didn't shoot this nearly as much as some of these other bows because of that reason. I mean, it just struggled to get back, and I can see myself, in a tree stand, awkward position, and this thing would be, I would look funny, kind of drawing this thing back in an awkward position, because it's tough. And again, that can play into, how much motion you put into a draw cycle, and could very easily give you away. So not the smoothest draw to me. So we gave it an 8 out of 10 for performance as well. So it got a total of 45. It does get the +2 because it's about $11.99. So about $1,200. So anywhere between $1,000 and $1,500, we get you to make up 2. If it's below $1,000, we let you make up 3. And if it's above $1,500, you only get to make up for 1. So 47 out of 50 gives it that nice 94 grade. It did get those 2 extra points for speed. So, without that, it would be that kind of low 90. Love the bow. I'll probably hold on to this one just so I can shoot it some more. Because like I said, I didn't get to shoot it as much as I would have liked. But great bow, 94, solid grade, prime archery. I love how they're thinking. I love in the direction that they're heading. To me, simpler sometimes is a little bit better. If things work, stick to them. I love innovativeness, but I think it can get a little bit too far. So if you don't follow us on Instagram, do so. That'll give you all the updates on what bows that we're gonna review next, equipment, how-tos. We have a new basic bowman series coming out that'll be out here soon, which will kind of help any beginner hunter get their foot, in the door, get their feet wet, help them through the bow buying process, and kind of get them set up for those first practice shots in their backyard. Another thing, we have some giveaways that are also directed towards Instagram. So follow us on Instagram, stay in tune for all of those giveaways. I love to kind of give bows out there, help people get in the field. Make sure you don't buy a bow off a single bow review. Get as many bows in your hands as you can. Above all, get your reps in on the daily, and we will see you next Saturday.